humans arrived in Australia over 65,000 years ago. Buried tools and pigments tell a new history of humans in Australia. The question of when people first arrived in Australia has been subject of lively debate among archaeologists, and one with important consequences for global story of human evolution. Australia is the endpoint of early modern human migration out of Africa and sets the minimum age for the global dispersal of humans. This event was remarkable on many fronts because it represented the largest maritime migration yet undertaken, the settlement of the driest continent on Earth, Australia, and required adaptation to vastly different flora and fauna. Although it's well known that anatomically modern humans were in Africa before 200,000 years ago and in China around 80,000 years ago, archaeologists believe that Australia was not occupied until 47,000 years ago. But this research now, published in Nature magazine, pushes back that timing of the event to at least 65,000 years ago. It was a difficult age. Together with Mirarr Aboriginal people, the team excavated the Majebebe rock shelter in Kakadu near Jabiru in Australia's Northern Territory. It was a small excavation in 1989. This site had proposed evidence for human activity in Australia 60 to 50,000 years ago. However, some archaeologists were reluctant to accept that age. Some pointed to the sandy deposit at the site, arguing that the artifacts may have been easily moved down into older layers by trampling or burrowing animals. Others said the measured ages for the archaeological sediments were not precise enough to support a date of 50,000 years rather than 45,000 years ago. They were trying to push the details, the findings, to fit into whatever the Earth population theory was. That is, less than 47,000 years, but that's changed. Since those excavations in 1980, the debate has intensified. Analysis of DNA from the hair of an Aboriginal man who lived 100 years ago suggests that Aboriginal Australians separated from early Asian populations sometime between 62,000 and 75,000 years ago. On the other hand, climate records have implicated humans in megafaunal population collapse at 45,000 to 43,100 years ago, a time frame that had been presumed to correlate with humans' arrival in Australia. To make new research possible, there was a landmark agreement that was reached between the University of Queensland and associated researchers and the Gundjeihmi Aboriginal Corporation, representing the Mirarr traditional owners of this site. The agreement gave ultimate control over the excavation to the Mirarr senior custodians. They had oversight of the excavation and curation of the material. The Mirarr were interested to support new research into the age of the site and to know more about the early evidence of technologies thought to be present there. There were new digs and new dates. In 2012 and 2015, the team excavated an area of 20 square meters at Majebebe. They found artifacts in 3 distinct layers of occupation. Among the artifacts in the lowest levels, there was found pieces used for seed grinding and ochre crayons that were used to make pigments. The larger excavation area allowed the researchers to pick up very rare items, such as the world's oldest known edge-ground hatchets and the world's oldest known use of reflective pigment. During the excavation, the researchers recorded the 3-dimensional coordinates of more than 10,000 stone artifacts using a laser total station. The device sits on a tripod and uses a laser and a prism to record the location of artifacts and other features at millimeter accuracy, and this way giving a very precise record of artifact position and layering. The researchers analyzed these coordinates to test previous criticisms that artifacts may have moved a lot in the sand, but the researchers found some broken artifacts that they could fit back together, and by measuring the distance between the pieces, they could understand how far artifacts had moved. They also concluded and conducted an experiment to observe the movement of the artifacts on the ground when people walked over them. The results allowed the researchers to respond to the earlier critics with data pointing to a relatively small amount of movement, not enough to mix artifacts between the three distinct layers of occupation that the researchers found in their excavations. During these excavations, the scientists collected many kinds of samples for specialized analysis. The samples included more than 100 samples for dating. And then they used radiocarbon dating and optical stimulated luminescence, known as OLS. They were methods to find the ages of the artifacts. Because of the fact that radiocarbon dating is limited to samples only younger than 50,000 years old, the scientists had to rely on OSL, as we said, optical stimulated luminescence, in order to help find the ages of the lower part of the site. Because they were so old, they were over 50,000 years old. OSL methods estimate the time elapsed since the grains were last exposed to sunlight. Australian archaeologists have been wary of OSL, the optical stimulation luminescence methods, because often in the past OSL involved sand grain measured together in a little group, resulting in the ages that were not very accurate, because the sand grains from the top fell to the bottom of the oldest ages. To get more precise ages, scientists had to measure thousands of sand grains individually rather than in a group. They also had another lab analyze some samples in order to make sure their results were reliable. The results is that they had a convincing age for the settlement of Gundjeihmi in Australia of 65,000 years ago. Now, concerning the global story of human evolution. Now, we have to take into effect that if it was an ice age, the sea levels were a lot lower than they were today, and there could have been a land bridge connecting connecting Asia, Indonesia with Australia. So as we're reading this article, I decided to go to Google Earth and look up the area as it is today, with sea levels of today. And we see that New Guinea is on the top here, and the tip down in the middle of the image down below is the northern tip of Australia. And you can see that the tip of New Guinea on the top to the northern tip of Australia at the bottom is only 83 miles. But the thing is that it's dotted with so many islands. And each island could be about anywhere between 5 to 10 miles apart. So they could have gone island hopping, unless if the sea levels were so much lower, this could have been a land bridge anyway. So it's very easy to have gotten from New Guinea to the tip of Australia. And New Guinea, as we know, if we look at Google Earth, you'll see it's a part of a huge landmass island chain in the Pacific, which has to do with Indonesia and Taiwan and all those areas, which are definitely, when the sea levels were a lot lower, as we saw from the recently discovered megalithic undersea structures found in Japan, those huge megalithic temples, they were at one point over 10,000 years BC above land, which means that all of this could have been a huge land bridge, landmass, very easily walkable. But going back to our article now. So if in this case, if people have lived in Australia since 65,000 years ago, it may be true that humans and megafauna coexisted for 20,000 years before megafauna went extinct across the continent. The researcher says that until now, they knew very little about the technology and lifestyles of the first Aboriginal people. The oldest artifacts from Gundjeihmi help to tell the story. They indicate that the earliest Aboriginal inhabitants of Australia were very innovative people, Like humans everywhere on Earth, they developed solutions to their new problems and engaged in symbolic and artistic expressions. The scientists found evidence for the mixture of ochre pigment with reflective powders made from ground mica to make a vibrant paint. And currently, the oldest known rock art in the world is dated to 40,000 years ago in Sulawesi, a possible stepping stone to Australia. But the abundant ground ochre and use of mica indicates that artistic expression took place in the area a lot earlier. Scientists found new forms of stone tools such as edge-ground hatchet heads, and even the grounding stones used to sharpen them. They were useful in cutting bark and wood and shaping wood tools and extracting difficult to obtain food from the trees. The grinding stones from the site showed a range of fruit, seeds, animals, and other plants were ground up for food. These are the oldest known examples of seed grinding stones found in Australia, and perhaps they're the oldest grinding stones found in the whole world. The ancient fireplaces from the site were also studied and recovered pieces of burnt pandanus nuts, fruit seeds, and yams, which gave the scientists clues as to the earliest plant foods that the people consumed at the site. Some of these foods continue to be eaten today by the Mirarr and other Aboriginal people in the top end. The New Ages suggest that Australia was settled well before modern humans entered Europe about 45,000 years ago. So the Aborigines in Australia lived a lot longer than that. This means that the earliest art and symbolism in Europe is of limited relevance to understanding modern technology and expression in South and Southeastern Asia and Oceania. The research results help to show the unique place of the Eastern Hemisphere, and Australia in particular, in understanding how and where modern humans appeared. So this is still an ongoing research study here, an ongoing dig, and I'm sure they'll find a lot more findings. It's a recent conclusion. It's still ongoing. This is on the conservation, and I'll leave links below for you for this. This is by Chris Clarkson from the University of Queensland, Ben Marwick, University of Washington, Lindley Wallace, University of Notre Dame, Australia, Richard Folgar, University of Wollongong, and Zenobia Jacobs, University of Wollongong. And Life Science has this dated July 20th, 2017. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.